Hey there, I'm Jack Henderson. For 27 years, I lived and breathed professional golf. The feeling of that perfect swing, watching the ball soar exactly where you intended. There's nothing like it. But about 5 years into my retirement, I woke up one morning and couldn't lift my arm above shoulder height. The pain was excruciating. My doctor's words still echo in my mind. You might need to find a new hobby. Find a new hobby. Golf wasn't just a hobby. It was my identity, my social life, my reason to get up in the morning. I remember standing at the first tee, unable to take a full backswing, and thinking, this can't be how my story ends. I'd always had little aches and pains throughout my career. That's just part of the game. But this was different. This was a deep, burning sensation that radiated from my rotator cuff down through my entire arm. Simple things became impossible, reaching for a coffee mug in the upper cabinet, putting on a jacket, even giving my grandkids a proper hug. What made it worse was the isolation. When you can't play, you stop going to the club. When you stop going to the club, you miss out on those connections that kept you going after retirement. My wife noticed I was becoming withdrawn, irritable. I wasn't just losing golf, I was losing myself. I tried everything the traditional route had to offer. Cortisone shots gave temporary relief, but nothing lasting. Physical therapy helped somewhat, but progress was painfully slow. Anti-inflammatory medications upset my stomach. Surgery was presented as an option, but at 68, the thought of a lengthy recovery and uncertain outcome was daunting. It was my old caddy, Tom, who finally said something that clicked. He called out of the blue one day and said, "Jack, you spent decades studying the mechanics of a golf swing. Why aren't you applying that same analytical approach to your shoulder?" That question changed everything. Here's what most doctors won't tell you about shoulder pain in your senior years. It's rarely just about the shoulder. Our bodies are interconnected systems, and especially for lifelong golfers, shoulder issues usually involve the neck, upper back, and even core stability. I started researching how the aging body specifically impacts the shoulder joint. When we age, we lose elasticity in our tendons and ligaments. Our muscle mass naturally decreases. And those thousands of golf swings, they create specific patterns of imbalance that compound over time. For golfers, especially, we tend to develop what specialists call golfer's shoulder, a combination of overuse in certain muscles and underuse in others. Right-handed golfers typically experience pain in the left shoulder from repeated follow-through, while the right shoulder suffers from the strain of power generation during the swing. What I discovered was eye-opening. The conventional wisdom of rest it until it feels better is actually counterproductive for most shoulder issues. Controlled, specific movement is essential for healing and maintaining shoulder health, especially as we age. But here's the critical insight. Not all stretches and exercises are created equal, and what works for a 30-year-old won't necessarily work for someone in their 60s or 70s. Our needs are different, our recovery is different, and our approach needs to be different too. About 3 months into my research and experimentation, I had a breakthrough moment. I was working with a sports physical therapist who specialized in treating aging athletes, a niche I didn't even know existed. Dr. Melissa Chen asked me something no other healthcare provider had. Show me your golf stance and walk me through your swing in slow motion, stopping whenever you feel discomfort. This simple request changed everything. As I went through the motion, stopping at the top of my backswing where the pain was sharpest, she observed something crucial. My shoulder wasn't the primary problem. It was my thoracic spine mobility. Years of focusing on shoulder rotation had masked the fact that my upper back had become increasingly rigid, forcing my shoulder to compensate. "Your shoulder is working overtime because your spine isn't doing its job," she explained. "We need to restore motion to your thoracic spine first, then strengthen the supporting muscles around your shoulder." That day, she showed me 3 stretches specifically designed to improve thoracic mobility. They weren't complicated or strenuous. In fact, they were deceptively simple. But after just 2 weeks of doing them daily, I could feel a noticeable difference. After a month, I was able to take a 3/4 swing without pain for the first time in over a year. I remember the first day, I played a full round without taking pain medication. I actually broke down in tears on the 18th green. My playing partners, guys I'd known for decades, pretended not to notice, but one of them, Bill, quietly said, "Welcome back, Jack. We missed you out here, let me share." The cornerstone stretches that made the biggest difference in my recovery. I call these my Foundation 5 because they address the fundamental mobility and stability issues that most senior golfers face. The first is what I call the thoracic bridge. This gentle stretch focuses on restoring rotation in your upper back. Without proper thoracic mobility, your shoulders and lower back take on excessive strain during the golf swing. The second is the shoulder shelf release. This targets the often overlooked muscles under your shoulder blade that become tight and restricted, especially in golfers. When these muscles don't function properly, your rotator cuff has to work much harder than necessary. The third foundation stretch is the pectoral dorsiframe stretch. As we age, our chest muscles tend to tighten and pull our shoulders forward, creating a rounded posture that severely limits shoulder mobility and rotation, essential elements for a pain-free golf swing. The fourth is what physical therapists call cervical retraction with extension. In simple terms, it's a specific way of stretching your neck that relieves tension on the nerves that run through your shoulder. Many shoulder pain issues actually originate in the neck, something I never realized during all those years on the tour. The final foundation stretch is the sleeper stretch, which targets internal rotation of the shoulder, a motion that dramatically decreases with age and shoulder problems. This one was uncomfortable at first, but it's been transformative for my ability to follow through on my swing without pain. What makes these stretches different is that they're specifically calibrated for the older body. They don't require getting down on the floor, they don't strain arthritic joints, and they can be modified based on your current mobility level. I do these 5 stretches every morning, without fail. They take less than 10 minutes total, but they've become as essential to my daily routine as brushing my teeth. While those foundation stretches were transformative, I learned that a comprehensive approach to shoulder health involves more than just stretching. It requires a balanced program that includes mobility work, strategic strengthening, and technique modifications. Strengthening was something I initially resisted. I worried that adding resistance exercises would aggravate my shoulder pain. But Dr. Chen explained that targeted strengthening of the rotator cuff and scapular, stabilizing muscles, is essential for long-term shoulder health, especially for golfers. She introduced me to resistance band exercises that were gentle yet effective. Unlike weight machines that lock you into fixed movement patterns, resistance bands allow for natural motion while still providing the necessary challenge to build strength. The external rotation exercise became my go-to for rotator cuff strengthening. It's simple. With your elbow at your side, you rotate your forearm outward against the band's resistance. I started with just 5 repetitions and minimal resistance, gradually building up over time. Another game changer was the scapular retraction exercise, which strengthens the muscles between your shoulder blades. These muscles are critical for maintaining proper shoulder position throughout the golf swing. But perhaps the most important aspect of my recovery was learning to modify my technique. This was humbling for someone who had taught the game for decades, but I had to accept that my body had changed and my swing needed to change with it. I worked with a teaching pro who specialized in helping seniors adjust their swing to accommodate physical limitations. He helped me make 3 key modifications. First, I widened my stance slightly for better balance and to reduce the need for excessive spinal rotation. Second, I shortened my backswing to stay within my comfortable range of motion. Better to have a controlled 3/4 swing than to force a full swing that causes pain. And third, I focused on using my legs and core more efficiently to generate power, reducing the strain on my shoulders. These changes meant accepting that I wouldn't hit the ball quite as far as I used to. But the trade-off was being able to play consistently, without pain, and actually enjoy the game again. And honestly, the difference in distance was much less than I feared it would be. Something I didn't expect during this journey was how much of the battle would be mental. There's a psychological toll that comes with chronic pain and the fear that you might never return to the activities you love. I went through periods of frustration, depression, and even anger. Why was this happening to me? Hadn't I taken care of my body throughout my career? These feelings are normal, but they can become obstacles to recovery if you don't address them. What helped me was setting small, achievable goals rather than focusing on getting back to 100%. My first goal wasn't to play 18 holes pain-free. It was simply to do my stretches consistently for 2 weeks. Then it was to hit 10 balls at the driving range without pain. Each small victory built momentum and hope. I also found that connecting with others facing similar challenges was incredibly valuable. There's a tendency to isolate when you're in pain, but sharing experiences with fellow golfers dealing with their own physical limitations created a support system that kept me motivated. One of the most powerful mental shifts came when I stopped seeing my shoulder issue as something to overcome and started viewing it as an opportunity to evolve my relationship with golf. This wasn't about getting back to how things were. It was about finding a new way forward that respected my body's current capabilities. This perspective shift, it changed everything. Instead of feeling frustrated by limitations, I became curious about adaptations. Instead of mourning what I'd lost, I appreciated what I still had, the ability to be out on the course, enjoying the game I love, even if I played it differently now. Consistency turned out to be the secret ingredient in my recovery. The most effective stretches and exercises won't help if you only do them occasionally or abandon them once you start feeling better. I developed a routine that worked for my lifestyle and stuck with it. My morning foundation, 5 stretches are non-negotiable. I do my strengthening exercises 3 times a week, usually while watching the Golf Channel. On golf days, I arrive at the course 30 minutes early to go through a specific pre-round warm-up sequence. This isn't the casual stretching you might see pros doing on TV. It's a targeted routine that activates the key muscle groups needed for a pain-free round. Just as important is my post-round recovery routine. After playing, I spend 10 minutes doing gentle stretches to release any tension that built up during the round. I also use contrast therapy, alternating ice and heat, if I feel any hint of inflammation. The key to making this sustainable was integrating these practices into my existing routines rather than treating them as separate, time-consuming activities. My morning stretches happen right after breakfast. My band exercises, are part of my TV time. My pre-round routine is just part of my preparation, like checking my tee time or organizing my golf bag. What I've found is that this consistent approach doesn't just manage my shoulder pain, it's improved my overall mobility, balance, and energy levels. At 73, I feel better physically than I did at 65, despite the natural progression of aging. About 2 years into my recovery journey, something unexpected happened. During a casual round with some former colleagues, one of them, a guy who'd won multiple majors in his prime, mentioned he was struggling with similar shoulder issues and was considering giving up the game. I shared what I'd learned, showed him a couple of the key stretches, and suggested resources that had helped me. A few weeks later, he called to say he was already feeling improvement and had scheduled time with the specialist I'd recommended. That conversation sparked something in me. I realized that there were thousands of senior golfers facing the same challenges, potentially giving up the game they love because they didn't have access to the right information. I started small, just sharing tips with friends at the club. Then I began hosting informal workshops in our clubhouse. The response was overwhelming. Men and women in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s finding relief and returning to the course with renewed enjoyment. One 78-year-old woman told me she'd been ready to sell her clubs before trying my routine. 6 months later, she shot the best round of her life. A 65-year-old man who'd had surgery on both shoulders found that the post-surgical rehabilitation went much more smoothly when he incorporated these specialized stretches. The common thread in all these stories was the same. Conventional approaches weren't addressing the specific needs of senior golfers. The standard physical therapy protocols, while scientifically sound, weren't tailored to the unique demands of the golf swing or the specific limitations of aging bodies. This realization led me to collaborate with Dr. Chen and several other specialists to develop a comprehensive program specifically for senior golfers dealing with shoulder issues. We've now helped hundreds of players extend their golfing lives, often with dramatic improvements in both pain levels and performance. Through this journey, I've developed a philosophy about aging that goes beyond golf or shoulder health. I call it aging actively, the idea that we should continuously adapt how we move and exercise as we age, rather than simply doing less or stopping activities altogether. Too often, we accept limitations as inevitable when many of them are actually optional. Yes, our bodies change as we age. That's unavoidable. But how much those changes impact our quality of life is largely within our control. The key is being proactive rather than reactive. Don't wait until pain prevents you from doing what you love. Incorporate preventive practices that address the common issues associated with aging. For golfers specifically, this means acknowledging that the 70-year-old body has different needs than the 50-year-old body. Your warm-up routine should evolve. Your strength training should evolve. Even your equipment might need to evolve. There's no shame in moving to graphite shafts or more forgiving clubs if they help you continue enjoying the game. But this philosophy extends beyond golf. Whether your passion is gardening, tennis, travel, or playing with grandchildren, the principle remains the same. Adapt, don't abandon. Find ways to modify how you engage in these activities rather than giving them up entirely. This approach has profound implications for mental health and longevity. Research consistently shows that maintaining physical activity and social connections as we age is associated with better cognitive function, lower rates of depression, and even longer lifespans. My shoulder journey taught me that the goal isn't to turn back. The clock It's to make the most of where we are right now, with the bodies we currently have. When I look back at that dark period when shoulder pain nearly ended my golfing days, I'm filled with gratitude, not just for finding relief, but for the journey itself and all it taught me. I now play golf 3 times a week, without pain medication, without dreading certain shots, and without paying for it with days of discomfort afterward. My handicap is higher than it was during my competitive days, of course, but my enjoyment of the game is actually deeper. There's something profoundly satisfying about overcoming a challenge that once seemed insurmountable. Each time I complete a round, I'm reminded of how close I came to losing this central part of my life and identity. If you're dealing with shoulder pain that's affecting your golf game or any other activity you love, I want you to know that there's hope. The specific approaches I've shared today aren't miracle cures. They require consistency and patience, but they work, especially for bodies that have a few decades of living behind them. Start with the foundation 5 stretches. Give them at least 3 weeks of daily practice before expecting significant results. Remember that healing isn't linear. You'll have good days and challenging days, but the overall trajectory can be positive. Consider reaching out to a physical therapist who specializes in working with seniors or golfers specifically. The right guidance can make all the difference in adapting these principles to your unique situation. And perhaps most importantly, maintain perspective. Your worth isn't tied to your handicap or even your ability to play at all. But if golf brings you joy, connection, and purpose, as it does for me, then it's worth fighting for. I'd love to hear about your experiences and answer any questions you might have. Drop them in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation. And if you found this information helpful, please share it with others who might benefit. There are too many golfers unnecessarily sidelined by shoulder pain when solutions are within reach. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Here's to many more years of pain-free golf for all of us. I'll see you on the course.